Hello students, in this video we are going to study how to graph the reciprocal function. So first try to understand that whenever we are talking about the reciprocal functions, so bring the concept of studying the rational functions into your mind. And what are rational functions? Rational functions are the functions which have a variable in the denominator. So we will see that how can we graph such kind of function. Now the most important thing is that try to find out the excluded value from the function. Excluded value means that the value that makes the function undefined. So for example, in front of you, I wrote one example, that is f of x equals to 1 over x. Now, you all know that in place of x, if I replace 0 by x, then this makes my function undefined. Because 1 over 0 gives you a math error which makes the function undefined. So such kind of excluded values we are going to find out by doing some of the examples. Now, what are rational functions? We just saw that the rational functions are the function which has a variable in their denominator. And whenever we talk about f of x equals to 1 over x, this is the parent function of the rational function, because all other functions, all other equations of the functions come from this original function. Now, when I write in place of x a 0, that makes my function undefined. So, in order to understand what are the characteristics of this function, I will look at the domain. So, domain means all x values which you will put in place of x and you get an answer. So, you can see, you can substitute one by one. For example, substitute in place of x as any negative number, So for example, if I put negative 2, so I will get 1 over negative 2, which gives me a negative 0.5 answer. Put in place of x any positive number, for example 10. Okay, so you will get 0.01. So whatever you put, either a negative number or a positive number, it gives you an answer. But if you put 0, it gives you undefined. So in order to write the domain of such functions, you can say that all real numbers except 0. So 0 is my excluded value. Now after this, try to find the range. So similarly, if you put any number, you will get an output. But once you put a 0, you will get the undefined function. So your range is also all real numbers except 0. Now at this 0, which makes the function undefined, when x equals to 0, you will get a vertical asymptote. What is meant by vertical asymptote? It means if you replace x by a very small number, 0. For example, even you write 0.0000001, you will get an answer. Okay, you will get an answer. So any number you will put, even very closer to the 0, you will get the answer. But once you put the 0, you will not get the answer. It means that the function is coming closer and closer to 0 value, but it will never ever hit the 0 value. It will never hit the 0 point. So this is the definition of vertical asymptote. Similarly, you have on the x a horizontal asymptote, which means that the line will come closer and closer and closer to the x-axis, but it will never ever touch that horizontal axis. It will not hit the x-axis. So this is the graph. We find it out for f of x equals to 1 over 6, but you can see here also one more thing. For example, if I had the equation y equals to 1 over x, this is what we were stating. Now, let's suppose you want to find out x-intercept. Okay, so x-intercept means y equals to 0. So replace y by 0 and write 1 over x. By cross multiplication, if you put the x on the top, so 0 times x, you will get 0, which is not equals to 1. So this shows that you have no x-intercept. No x-intercept means that the line will come closer to the 0, but it will not touch the x. Now, similarly, find out the y-intercept. Y-intercept means what? X equals to 0. So when you replace x by 0, you will get a math error, that means undefined. So that also shows that you have no y-intercept. You have no y-intercept, which means that the function is coming closer and closer and closer to the y-axis, but it will not touch the y-axis. Now the shape of the graph, it means whenever you make one side curve, its reflection will go in the form of the symmetry to the other quadrant. Means if one is on the one quadrant, so the second shape will come in the third quadrant. Similarly, if you get a shape in the second quadrant, then its reflection will come in the fourth quadrant in the form of symmetry. So this shape is called hyperbola. It's written here. The shape is known as hyperbola. Let's see here. Let's see here and focus on what are the kind of the values in these functions make the function undefined. So whenever you are asked to find the excluded value, always focus on the denominator. So the denominator is x plus 1. You make it, it should not be equals to 0. Bring the 1 on the other side. The positive 1 goes on the other side, you will get negative 1. So the excluded value is negative 1. Why? Because if you substitute here negative 1 in place of x, you will get 0 in the denominator. That makes the function undefined. So you don't need negative 1 in this question. Now let's suppose here 1 over 4x. So again, focus on the denominator should not be equals to 0. 4 is multiplying with the x, so divide both sides by the 4, you will get x not equals to 0. So in this case, the excluded value is 0. Let's try to solve the C option. So here again, focus on the denominator, 5 over 2x minus 6. So 2x minus 6 is in the denominator, should not be equals to 0. Bring the 6 on the other side. Negative 6 goes on the other side, gives you positive 6. Divide both sides by the 2 and you will get 3. So the excluded value is 3. More example that how can you find the excluded values in these cases. Okay, so the first thing is we have to focus on the denominator and try to solve for x. So 3x minus 9, make the equation equals to 0 and solve for x. So bring the 9 on another side. So negative 9 goes on the other side, gives you positive 9. Divide both sides by the 3 and you will get x equals to 3. So the 3 is your excluded value and you can write that the domain are all real numbers except 3. Now, again in the second question, what we have to do, we have to focus the denominator, that is 4x square minus 4, make the equation equals to 0. Now, bring the 4 on the other side, it will become positive 4, 4x square equals to 4. In order to find the x square value, divide both sides by 4, you will get x square equals to 1. Now, in order to get the x value, you have to take the square root on both sides. Now remember, this square and square root cancels because the value of square root is half. Now, the x equals to square root of 1 is 1. But remember, whenever you have x with power 2 or any even number is the power of the x, whenever you will cancel this power, you always get the answer with positive and negative sign. So here you have the excluded values 1 and negative 1. So the domain is all real numbers except 1 and negative 1. Now solve the third question. X square minus 9. Make the equation equals to 0. Solve for x the same way we did it before. Bring the negative 9 on the other side. It makes it positive. Remove the square from one side. You will get x value. Again, the 2 is the even number. So the answer will be in the positive and negative side. The square root of 9 is plus minus 3. Now excluded value is positive 3 and negative 3. And the domain is all real numbers except minus 3 and positive. So the last question from my side, focus in the denominator. You will write here x square plus 9x plus 20 equals to 0. Now, what is the most important thing? The most important thing is that the power of the x is 2, which means that it is a quadratic function. So, once it is a quadratic function, to get the value of x, you must know that you have to factorize the equation. How can you factorize the equation? You will get a number, and you will factor the 20, so that when you add or subtract, you get the middle number. So it will be 5 and 4 because 5 times 4 gives you positive 20 and 5 plus 4 gives you 9. So you can write it in the bracket x plus 5 and x plus 4, and these are the excluded value. That's why make the equation equals to 0 as you are solving for x, for the excluded values. Now one time write x plus 4 equals to 0 and one time write x plus 5 equals to 0. One time here solve for x, you will get x equals to negative 5, and one time on this side solve for x, you will get x equals to negative 4. So in such cases, you have, whenever you have in the equation, in the denominator, any function with the square, then always you will have the two values because you have the two roots or two zeros or two solutions for quadratic equations. That's why you have the two excluded values for such kind of rational functions carrying the quadratic equation in the denominator. Now this is your turn. Try to solve it. Pause it, solve it, and I will be highly obliged if you send me your answers in the comment box. If you have any confusion in solving this, then just do write me and I will explain you. I will make a new video for you. Thank you very much. Let's wait for the second part in which we are going to study how to write the domain, vertical and vertical asymptote in the interval notation.